So let me start immediately with the first step in reading the Fool's Path. So it's about the different steps and facets of the spread in itself. So I will go further on, and there are more than one video, so there are videos to follow this. So this is concerning this first spread, because actually the Fool's Path is made out the Fool's Path is made out of two spreads. But I will just be patient, bear up with me. There's so much to explain that I'm trying to get this correctly. So imagine that you made the first spread. So you use the spread, you use only the major arcana, you shuffle them, you pick the cards, you put them on the position as you make with every other spread. Just at this time, all the cards will be in the spread, so you will not have any cards left. And this gives you a certain first idea concerning the situation. So in this case, as I said before in the first video, in Lenormand you have a person card. Here we take the Fool. In a way, I have no clue what's going on, and this is my first sight so that I can get an idea. And the Fool, you find him here in the world. So the world has a lot to do with opportunities. And as every card and every position has a positive and a negative place or explanation, so you could say that while the world is offering you opportunities, it may be that you have so many options that right now you do not know what option to take to make the right decision for yourself. And that may be, for example, if this is the reading of a customer, that may be the problem that actually underlies why the person came to me at the first place. The next thing I am doing is I'm checking the lines. So this is just a first idea. Okay, so I'm checking the lines afterwards. The lines is to come back from the Fool in its place in the reading. So how is the way leading the Fool back to his own house so that he can feel at home again? And that is actually my second thing that I'm doing. That is, I'm checking the lines. If there are more than one lines, there will be islands, there will be constellations. Just be sure this is a reading I put up so that I have islands, that I have constellations. Not everyone has more than one line. Not everyone has islands. Not everyone has constellations. It's just to give you all the examples. So what we're doing here is we walk in the way of the Fool. So the Fool is in the world. So we're looking where the world is, and the world is in the Wheel of Fortune. And there you have the first explanation. Let's stick to the idea. The person, the customer, the client says, I am overwhelmed by all the opportunities, and that is something that has the consequence that even the everyday life is not working correctly anymore. And this is telling us something because the Wheel of Fortune itself is in the Hermit. And that's why the person came, because he wants to find out what is going on inside of me. What may be the motivations why I do not see what is the best offer in all this? What is the motivation that I am struggling with this, instead of simply saying, oh, wow, the world is lying in front of me and I just have to step into it. Which brings us back to the Chariot. So actually this inner struggle, because the Chariot is very often shown with those two sphinxes, and you have to find a way to get all those inner parts getting into the same direction. So what was in the outside is now showing here in the inside. And this is bringing us to the next. Where is the Chariot? The Chariot is in the Moon. So we have the idea of illusion. Maybe the person in a certain way was lying to himself, saying, oh, I have everything in control, everything is good, everything is fine. And that is actually not really the point. It may also be that there is something, because the moon has a lot to do with pregnancy, and it can even show as pregnancy. So maybe the person is, there is a woman who comes and then says, oh, wow, I am really pregnant. And that is just, that is the moment I thought I had options like that and like that. And the idea to be pregnant is just showing me that the options and the things the world is offering me, I cannot take it as easy as I wanted to take it. So that depends. That's the communication that you have to have with a customer when you're doing such a reading. And that's an honesty that you have to have with yourself if you do this reading for yourself. So which brings us, where is the moon? The moon is in the Magician. So whether it is something we are pregnant of, an idea we are pregnant of, a real pregnancy, or if it has something to do with the illusion, it brings us back to questioning ourselves, how we see ourselves, how we want other ones to see us. The Magician in this case brings us to justice. So again, the listening to the inner part versus the outer parts. What are people telling us? What do we sense inside? Which brings us to the Emperor. The Emperor, fatherly aspects, maybe a problem even with the father. Maybe just the way we constructed our reality is being questioned here. Which brings us to the Hierophant. So actually, normally we create our reality out of a belief system that we have, maybe out of generation. Is there something that we are questioning now and that is waiting to break apart or to be healed? Which brings us to the Lovers. So there are inside decisions that cannot be taken because we are not clear in our head, in our mind, in our psyche. That brings us to the Temperance, inviting us to heal all this. And that brings us back to the Fool. And now we have the Temperance in the Fool, and at that moment you can say, yes, the first thing, as I said before, the Fool is the one, the card at the last position of the Fool is the one that says, how should we start? And it is telling us you have to start to heal yourself, to find your rhythm, to find your sense for all those parts in yourself. You have to take the time for yourself. You have to go to it slowly, and that is the moment. And so all this stress that came up here with all the options brings it back to himself or herself to say, okay, first of all, take the time to heal from maybe this structural problem that was seen here in the Emperor, in the Hierophant, and maybe that helps you. That's the first step. So that's the first line that shows up, okay? And then if you do have another line, you have to check if there's another of the basic 4 archetypes. So your basic 4 archetypes, you have one for every line. So your basic archetype in the first line is the Magician. The basic archetype in your second line is the Hermit. So the inner self, or even the higher self, our ethical parts. The one in the third line is the Devil, which is our shadow part. And in the last line, it's the Fool. So if one was not included, that is the moment, if there are cards left that are not in here, that you take the second one. So here I also go, in this case, I'm not sure why I did not take the Devil, but in this case, no, because I used the Devil for something else, exactly. So none of them is building up another line. So the line that is left is the line of the Empress. So when I'm saying I have a second line, it's a little bit as if your first line of the Fool is the line of your life. And those other lines are not linked to your life in the moment. So they are apart and they want to be integrated. It's the same for the islands and for the constellations, which are even more serious or more deep, I would say deeper. But here you have the Emperor. So maybe before we had a lot to do with the Emperor and the Hierophant. So really those two male aspects that came up, and we had nothing at all with the Empress, with the female part. And maybe that motherly part is missing. If I went on with the theory because it's an example, that my client is really pregnant. So maybe that is just the thing. Oh, I have no thought. I made no thought of this idea to become a mother. Maybe there were problems. The mother wasn't there. The mother died, or they were divorced, whatever. So here we have then that line, which brings the Empress. The Empress itself, so unfortunately I made the arrows the wrong way around. The Empress itself is in the star position. So actually it's a plan. So maybe inside and in their subconscious, this person had the plan to have a child, but did not actually become aware to have a child, that there was the whole situation of pregnancy which was behind. So we have the plan is there, and actually she thought of the result, because just a little step aside, we have the Tower, which is a phallic symbol, which brings in the seed into the Moon, which is a female symbol which has a lot to do with the idea of the female rhythm and pregnancy, and ends up with a child birth. So a child, a new human being, seeing the light of the day. So maybe that was the point. So she had that plan, and she thought of that plan immediately as a result. Oh, I will have a child. I would like to have a child. And she forgot completely the whole part of the pregnancy. How is this going to be? And the whole part of becoming ready, having the room ready, having all those things that come along with it. Maybe that person didn't have it on in the plan. It wasn't there. Which brings us to the Tower. So actually, it, in a certain way, it destroys. So she could be happy. Oh, I will have a child. This was my plan. Somewhere inside, maybe it was subconscious, I had a plan. But now that I am facing pregnancy, the whole thing, the happiness about having a child, is just crumbling apart at that moment. Which brings us back to judgment. Judgment has a lot to do with consequences. And all those consequences brings her back into her own house of, okay, the subject of being a mother, I have to reconsider it. I have to reconcile with all of it, not simply having a child, I'm becoming brutal now, being in possession of a child, but having a child. So we have to reconcile all this so that this part of the line can become part of my lifeline. Then I brought up an island, the Hangman, and the constellation. That was, I built it up like this to give you an example. So the Hangman, actually, he is in his own position, so he cannot move around. It's an island. He's completely out of the whole lines, and he's completely alone there. So in the case of the Hangman, this would actually be really this not being in control and being stuck in this idea of not being in control and not seeing where we can handle things. So the difference between control and handling things. So this for me is always the part there you start working. This is the part you have to work with first. And constellations, you have constellations of 2 cards or of 3 cards. And so actually it's a little bit as if those parts inside of ourselves are so concentrating on the other house that they are switching back and forth and not seeing what is going on around in life anymore. So in this case, you have the High Priestess and the High Priestess and the Devil. So actually you have the intuition and the shadow work. So each time that something intuitively comes up, you push it into the shadow, and the shadow is telling you, hey, I didn't give you that information, this intuitive information, just that you can say, oh no, I don't want to see it. So we do not trust, this person does not trust her intuition, has not learned to trust intuition, and this is switching back and forth, and this is also a very interesting way to recall the person, to say, okay, what is your intuition saying in all this, and why are you trying to deny intuition? And maybe because we had that situation in the line, that it has a lot to do with male characters. So sort of, oh, if it's not fact, you don't start like your mother and your grandmother, who always went like, no, I sense it. You do not sense it. Either you have it in front of you and in front of your eyes, or it's not true. And maybe it's a constellation like that, a family constellation like that, that makes actually this happening, that the person cannot get out of this idea that the moment a sensation, an intuitive knowledge comes up, she's trying to deny it, she tries to bring it back. So this is, as I'm saying, this is just an idea. This is how it's an example of a reading. And after that, we come to every single house. So actually, we have the house and the visitor. So I'm talking about the house of the position, and the visitor, the card that is in that house. And I'm just bringing up an example. So here I'm bringing up the example of the Hermit in the Chariot. I think this is quite a funny one, because I had it quite often, that it turns up, and it very often turns up in the same way. So you have to understand that to end up with the Hermit, you went through the explanation of all those. So the Sun and the Magician, the Devil and the High Priestess. And now we have all those information about those inner parts and where they are set, what may be the problems, and so on. And now we say, okay, we make our first step outside, and the first step outside, it's like the Hermit is sitting on the wheel of the chariot and saying, oh no, we are not ready to make a step outside. Let's recheck what our motives are. Let's recheck what our ethical parts in all this are, and so on. So the person is actually pushing away again and again, and rescheduling the moment to make this first step. So this can have a lot when I'm going on with the reading in itself. As the example, as I said, a pregnant woman with a lot of ideas. So actually, each time she comes to this, we have options. And here in the world, so the Fool in the world, who says, we have so many options. Each time that she says, oh, this may be a good step, a good first step, or this may be the right opportunity to take right now, then her Hermit may say, are you sure that you want to make that step right now? Now I want to show you, because here I am only telling you about the Hermit in the Chariot as explanation, but what is going on? What are all the information that you have in that one single case? How is it linked and interacting with other cards in the position, in the reading? So I noted them. So first of all, logically, you have the house, and you have the visitor and the interaction of them. You have the thing of the line. So in this case, your house before was the Wheel of Fortune. The next house was the moon. Is the moon. So you go on. If you go on in this staying there, you cannot go on with your plans that come in the moon. Then there is an imbalance in a certain way between the Chariot and the Hermit. The Chariot is the house 7. The Hermit is the card 9. So to find a balance, where should I go and look to find the energies that are missing for the Hermit not overwhelming the Chariot and being capable of moving the Chariot, and instead of keeping it stuck, because there's too much power in the energy itself. So that would be the 2, which is the High Priestess. In this case, because the visitor has a higher number, So he has to like take another look. Where can he look again to bring the Chariot and the Visitor in balance? That would be the High Priestess house, which is the devil. So we know the whole thing about, okay, so what is missing here is that maybe the hermit goes too much into an idea of higher self and of ethical questions, and is not bringing in the intuition. And if the intuition steps into this, then that may help him to get moving and to make the first step. It is not going to work alone with, I'm checking my motives. Doesn't matter, at a certain moment, doesn't matter what our known motives out of our beliefs mean, if our inner voice, our intuition tells us something else. So open your ear up to that part in this reading. So it could be the other way around. So for example, in the Lovers, the Lovers are in the Temperance house. Here it would be the card number 8, and then you say, okay, you have to bring the Force into the Temperance house, that it will be balanced between the visitors and the house. Then you have the quintessence. Here you have 2 quintessences. Which one? Because we have the 9, and the 9 is always shifting back to the other number. So you have the 2 things. So first of all, you take the first quintessence, which is the 7 and the 9, which is 16. So you check the house and the visitor of the Tower, what is going on in their houses, what is the energy there. Because if we're saying the Chariot and the Hermit are destroying old structures, then we can take a look at what is going on in our structure based on our beliefs. And then the last one, but I'm not going to explain that one right now. This is the counterpart, which will be explained in another reading. Then you have further techniques to get an idea of how to work even further with each house. So you can go over VACOG. VACOG are the 5 senses that we have. So V like visual, auditive, kinesthetic, olfactoric. Do you say like that in English? So the sense of how do you call that? Now I lost it. What you smell, the sense of smell, and the sense of taste. So, and then I took an example here too that you find in the reading. Okay, you have, for example, the Empress is in the house of the star. How do you imagine the house where a star is in? And you really let the person or yourself, you can voyage into the cards. You can make like a spiritual voyage, like a shamanic voyage into that place. And what will happen when the Empress steps into that house? What would she like to find? What would she change? What would she leave there? What would she take out of that house? So that way you can go into your intuitive part, into your subconscious part, and find out how the subconscious talks to you. You can also use different cards. So instead of just having one Empress, I took 3 different Empresses, and then take a look at what are the differences in the cards from one to the next. For example, for me, she is more in action. So which one is the one that you first feel? Let's say you go like this, and then you say, okay, but we have a card here that has less colors because it's a black and white. But the moment we bring it back to black and white, there is more action, there's more movement. So maybe we bring up, maybe we bring up that the same way our fool was overwhelmed with the options of the world, that we have here the same problem. We have a lot of colors, and we have so many impressions that we just block and we sit still, and at the moment we just filter and say, okay, we take 2 or 3 things, like here we just take black, white and gray, and that gives us the possibility to move, to have more movement, because we are not overwhelmed by all the information that comes in. If we take it to a card that is more animalistic, I took Paulina's deck for that. So first of all, maybe you are more into the shamanic ideas and you go with the shamanic ideas of the animal. That could be one of the directions. Maybe you get an idea that while she, for example, is very much in the society, very much in the material world here, in her society, here you have the first wild appearance, and here you get in completely into nature. And what are those differences making with you in that position? For example, if that position may be one of the position you are stuck with, so that way you can go further. Those are the next steps of how to use this reading and how to go further into the different houses, into whatever you note down, and find out what is linked. And maybe, for example, if you have one of those cards, you find out that, oh, I see something there that I also have in another house, in another card, and you find even other links that help you going on and understanding even more deeply what actually of energies are going on, are stuck, and so on and so on. So I do hope you like a little bit the explanation how you can use this reading. As I'm saying, it's not a fast reading, it's not a quick reading. This is something that you take out the moment you say, okay, I really want to go for it, I really want to work on all this. And so you have again a new layer concerning the reading. If you like it, you can like my channel. There will be another video. You can check the other videos, and I made a special playlist just with the videos of the Fool's Path. Thank you very much.